the weather might not feel like it yet, but the trends are showing the fall housing market is definitely here in Orange County. So what does that mean if you're thinking of buying or selling a home over the next couple of months? And how is this recent interest rate drop going to impact the fall housing market? We're going to talk about all of that and more when we go over the fall housing market update for Orange County for 2025 right now. So let's go ahead and get into it. So as with all of these monthly episodes, I'm going to give you some data points, but I'm going to give you the context around that so you can better understand what's actually happening in the Orange County housing market. So once I do that, we're going to talk about what interest rates are doing, as well as what to expect during the fall market, and then some advice for both buyers and sellers. So let's first go over what's been happening right now in the Orange County housing market. So if you've watched these market updates, you might remember that last month I told you that yes, inventory was still rising in Orange County. However, it looked like it was starting to flatline and will probably start going down. And that's exactly what has happened over the last 30 days. So we maxed out at about 5,000 homes in Orange County last month, but since then, at the beginning of this month, we're down to 4,800 homes. And this is the first time in a lot of years that we're starting to see a normal peak in the housing market. So over the last couple years, we usually didn't see that peak until somewhere towards mid-fall. However, it's very typical, especially prior to the COVID years, to see inventory build up during summer and at the very end of summer peak and then start heading down, which is exactly what's happening this year. Now, if you look at the demand side of things in terms of how many escrows have been closing, it's stayed roughly the same in Orange County over the last 2 months, hovering right around 1,900 homes sold both in July and August. So with inventory starting to shrink and demand staying about the same, it's basically setting us up to be in a still very balanced market in Orange County, and in some areas maybe in a slight buyer's market depending on the price range and the neighborhoods. And we can further see this broken down in the data. So when you look at the last 500 sales that have happened in Orange County, 35% of those homes sold for at or above asking price. Everything else was selling below asking price, which is still a decrease compared to the month before. Because the month before, when you look at those last 500 homes, we were at 40% of all homes selling for at or above. So we have still seen the market slightly slow down over this last month. However, I think there's a good chance that we're going to see things stabilize as inventory finally starts dropping in Orange County. So that's a quick snapshot of what's happening in Orange County's housing market right now. However, what does that mean as we head through fall? Well, as always, it's going to have everything to do with interest rates. And interest rates just dropped pretty significantly over the last couple weeks. So how is that going to impact the housing market as we head over the next couple months? Let's go ahead and talk about that now. So in case you haven't been tracking what interest rates have been doing this year, during the first half of the year, interest rates were hovering pretty high and pretty sticky around 7%. However, over the last couple months, especially this last month, we've seen some meaningful dips in interest rate where we're seeing new lows set for the year. And in fact, today, as I'm recording this, a new low is just set for 2025. Interest rates are now hovering around 6.29%. Now that might not sound like a giant difference from 7%, but let's look at something very simple to give you a better understanding of how that can impact your mortgage. So let's say you're buying $1 million home, you're putting 10% down. Right now, you'd be saving over $400 every single month on your mortgage by having interest rates where they are right now compared to the 7% that we saw at the beginning of summer. And for a lot of buyers, that's a pretty meaningful change, and it might go from something that's unaffordable to affordable, which is going to cause a lot more buyers to enter the market. And we know this because last year, around almost the same time, we actually did see interest rates drop back to the low sixes for a few weeks. And when we saw that, we saw a wave of new buyers enter the market and start gobbling up all the inventory. And we were in a seller's market in a lot of different areas throughout Orange County. Now, is that a guarantee that that's going to happen again if interest rates stay in these low sixes? No, but it's a pretty good indicator that when interest rates go down, especially as we get towards 6, a lot of buyers do want to start entering the market. And if buyers start entering the market at the same time inventory starts going down because we're heading through the fall market, you can see how there's a good chance, if rates stay where they are right now, that we could see the housing market start to heat up a little bit as we head through fall because there'll be less inventory to deal with and more buyer demand for those homes. Now, if these lower interest rates are just temporary and we start seeing rates go back up to the mid sixes again, then I would say we're probably looking at a pretty balanced market as we head through the rest of fall. If we see interest rates going up to the high sixes, we could be heading more towards a buyer market as we end the fall season. So what does all of this mean if you're thinking of getting into the market to either buy or sell a home over the next couple months? Well, let's go ahead and start with buyers first. So buyer, the obvious advantage right now is that interest rates are trending downwards, making homes more affordable to you right now. The biggest thing that you have to watch out for, at some point, there is going to be a tipping point where interest rates get so low, enough buyers enter the market where oftentimes you're going to see multiple offers on homes again. Again, this happened last year around the same time, so we've seen it before. So right now we're kind of at that edge where interest rates are still low, but maybe not low enough to get a giant wave of buyers in, and you might be able to get into a home without too much competition right now. But if they do go too much lower, especially getting down to 6% or even under, you can definitely expect a lot more buyers entering the market, and it's going to be much more competitive to try to get into that home of your dreams. So the best thing that you could be doing right now, if you haven't, is if you're buying the home with a loan, you need to be talking to a lender right now, going through that pre-approval process. It's free, it doesn't cost anything, and it won't impact your credit score. But going through that process, getting that pre-approval ready, so if a home does pop up and we have these ideal conditions for interest rates, you're able to act quickly, make an offer, get into escrow on that home of your dreams, and not have to wait around to get all the paperwork to the lender and wait for someone else to steal that home right out from underneath you. Now on the selling side of things, if anything, it does look like the market is trending slightly towards your favor right now because inventory is going down, which means your competition is disappearing, and at the same time, demand is starting to go up. So this is going to make it a little bit easier to sell your house right now compared to maybe the last couple months. However, it's important to remember that homes are still not flying off the shelf right now. Even if you might be able to get an asking price or above asking price for your home, it could still take a few weeks to get that. So you also need to be patient as well as have a good strategy for marketing and pricing your home when you place it on the market this fall. Right now, buyers are still looking for those move-in ready homes in great neighborhoods with great schools. So if you have one of those, you're going to have an easier time selling your home right now. If your home needs some work, you just need to make sure that you're pricing it correctly so that way it's not overpriced in today's market, because it will sit for a long time if it is. Now, if this video has got you curious and you have some additional questions, or if you're thinking of buying or selling a home and want some more specific advice based on your individual situation, feel free, if you're watching this on YouTube, to click the link below where you can sign up for a free 15-minute discover call with me. We can go over any questions you have, get them answered, no obligation. I'm just here to help. And if you want to continue learning about the housing market and maybe even find a way to get an interest rate at 3% below, make sure you click on these videos. So until next time, stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll see you on the next show. Bye, everybody.